So this past fortnight, news on a couple of secret, upcoming, very intriguing, budget-friendly blowers has oozed across the internet, and yet attracted surprisingly little attention from many of the big tech sites. But you know your uncle's spurt, I love a cheapy blower. After all, I'm a massive skinflint who would literally save a few quid by purchasing second-hand bog roll. So let's have a wee squint at these affordable mobiles after what is probably the most professionally produced internet jingle of all time. Techspert Weekly! Now first up, my interest has been highly piqued by Nothing's news that it's working on its first smartphone under the CMF brand. Whereas, well, we know CMF stands for cheap motherfucker. And possibly, perhaps. Details on this phone are about as thin as what remains of my bonnet, but the pic is certainly intriguing. One bloke on Twitter, or Twatter as it should probably be known these days, has posted his interpretation of what the CMF Phone 1 could look like, based on the teasy glimpses. And fair play, I reckon quite a lot of this will be true to the final product, including the bright orange design with the textured plastic finish for extra palm friction, to make the phone a wee bit less slippery. Not that I'm particularly bothered about that, as my RSI riddled hand is already locked into an iron grip like a sodden action figure, from holding too many phones obviously. You can certainly expect a few wee features like the exposed screws if the regular Nothing phones are anything to go by, and yet a corner dial as well, which so far hasn't been explained but could be used for a range of tasks, possibly fiddling with the volume, zooming with the camera, stuff like that. However, Nothing also recently revealed a very interesting and massively confusing teaser video on the CMF Phone 1, which shows not only the rotating dial but also some other rotatory thing, and what appears to be the back end lifting off entirely. And a removable R certainly makes an awful lot of sense. After all, some classic budget blowers like the Lumia handsets allowed you to prise the back end off and replace it with an entirely different colour to suit your mood, while also giving you easy access to that battery. So it certainly looks like the CMF Phone 1 could give our nostalgia knobs a seriously good polishing. Expected specs have been flying around the internet like shit in a monkey pen, with most Mystic Tech megs reckoning that the CMF Phone 1 will basically be a Nothing Phone 2A but with significantly different design, including a complete lack of glyph lights. Plus you can expect a more basic chipset, possibly a regular Dimensity 7200 rather than the custom 7200 Pro that powered the 2A. We might also see another 6.7 inch screen, a 5000 mAh battery and basic camera tech, possibly just a single lens effort. And the CMF Phone 1 will be officially launched by Nothing on July the 8th at 10 o'clock BST in one of their community updates online. And it'll probably only release in a handful of select regions. Let's hope that Blighty is one of them, because let's face it, we're all skint as here. But hey, even if the CMF Phone 1 doesn't land in the UK, you could have another excellent budget option courtesy of HMD Global. Because HMD, best known for its Nokia branded smartphones, could actually be launching some fresh new Lumia mobiles later in 2024. At least if these leaks aren't a bulging bag of baboon balls. Now, Lumia blowers were pumped out by Nokia between 2011 and 2014, and then Microsoft took over until the brand was brutally axed in 2016. And these iconic handsets stood out from the rest of the smartphone crowd for a couple of good reasons. First, they all ran Windows Phone, the classic tile-based alternative to Android and iOS. And second, they were more colourful than a pride parade, coming in pretty much every hue you could possibly imagine. So far, those leaks have pointed to a pair of new Lumia smartphones codenamed Tomcat and Nighthawk. And before you chortle, codenames are pretty much mandatory when it comes to Lumia phones. After all, some of the originals went by eye-lifting titles like Bandit, Glory, Chakra and Doris. Shittiest Gladiators reboot ever. And certainly in those leaked renders, the Tomcat and Nighthawk seem to be faithful to that original Lumia design, with a flat top and bottom and spangly so bright it hurts colours. Both are apparently IP67 water and dust resistant and sport a 120Hz OLED display and 108MP main camera. The Nighthawk is apparently the cheaper of the pair, downgrading the Tomcat's Snapdragon 7S Gen 2 performance to a Snapdragon 4 Gen 2, while also culling that secondary ultra-wide camera lens. But as some kind of form of compensation, the Nighthawk does also add in a headphone jack and microSD memory card storage, while the Tomcat's 4900 mAh capacity battery is also boosted in size a wee bit to 5000 mAh. And of course, Windows Mobile OS is dead as f***, fuck, RIP, but while the HMD Lumias will come loaded with Android, you can always chuck on a Windows Mobile style launcher like Square Home to get that authentic Lumia vibe. New Lumias, can't wait. That is my happy place right there. Actually, no, scrap that. My happy place is round your mum's with a jar of peanut butter and a pair of crotchless lederhosen. But anyway, that's enough nostalgia and budget blower bollocks for one session. What I want to know is, what would you prefer, CMF Phone 1 or a fresh new Lumia handset? And also maybe let us know your fond and your not so fond Lumia memories, and Jesus cockfapping Christ, I'm starting to sound like a shit radio DJ now. Basically, type whatever the hell you want down in the comments below and we'll smash our way through as many of those as possible in next week's viewer comments. And speaking of which, that's what's now, except for last week's comments. Obviously, I'm not a fucking clairvoyant. Viewer comments. So first up this week, Grebo and Gaspod says, you would have been proud of me last weekend. I managed a 14-hour drinking session only to end the night falling down some stairs as I left the pub, cutting my head and giving myself a black eye. Somehow I managed to save my phone from getting damaged in the process, so a win. Gotta say, mate, I admire your ability to pull the positives out of pretty much any situation. But Jesus, after 14 hours, I don't think I'd have been walking out of the pub, I'd have been crawling at best. I just can't hack all day drinking anymore. Like last Sunday, Father's Day, started drinking at lunchtime, and by the time the match came on, I was basically face down in a puddle of my own drool. Best dad ever. Next up, Chur8376 says, I'm eating pasta right now. But which kind though? Are we talking bow tie, spirally? Maybe we've got a bit upper crust with some linguine action. Personally, I've got to say I'm a fan of the old tubes. Got a nice bite to them. Very satisfying. Thus ends this week's hot pasta segment. Philippe202 says, will you do a video on the Huawei FreeBuds 6i? I already have done, mate, and definitely please do go give it a watch because absolutely no other bugger did. JR Cat says, I love your content, but I don't understand what language you're speaking. Thank God for closed captions. I mean, it's supposed to be English, but if you had to sum it up in just one word, most of it is probably just bollocks. Alessandro is asking for a Mr. Who's the Boss collab. I somehow don't think he'd be willing to lower himself to my level, sadly. If I could get him on here down in 10 pints and giggling his arse off about 6-inch pocket rockets, then yeah, I'd count that as a victory, but somehow I think his vibe is probably more a kale juice on ice. Hypostasi says, strangely enough, I watch this show religiously every Friday evening after work, although I don't understand even half of the cultural British puns. Now, I'm starting to get the feeling that at least half of the people that watch this show have no f***ing clue whatsoever what I'm banging on about, which certainly makes a whole heap of sense. I know, yes, last week the fill-in of the tasty tech pie was Samsung's upcoming Galaxy Z Fold 6, which according to all of the leaks so far basically looks like the Galaxy Z Fold 5 but with a slightly different number on the box. Lots of correspondence, of course, so Impin Ain't Easy said, should I upgrade from my Z Fold 3? I've yet to see a massive difference between the other folds that would warrant an upgrade, or should I just go for the S24 Ultra? I mean, I've got to say, my personal choice would probably be the S24 Ultra because you've got a pretty spacious screen. It's going to be big enough for anything you're going to want to do anyway. You've got the S Pen stuffed inside of an orifice there if that's your bag. Then of course you've got a cracking bit of camera tech as well. But, you know, the Z Fold 6 hasn't officially launched yet, so it is all just leaks and rumours. Could all turn out to be total trouser. Graham Harrison says, I've got the Magic V2 and I love it. Couldn't wait for the Fold 6 and now I'm glad I didn't. And Neon Visual says, now that I have the Honor Magic V2, the only way I'll go back to Sammy is if they slim the phone down to the same thickness and keep the wireless power sharing. That's the only thing I miss on the V2 as I love to top up my watch. Yeah, the Magic V2 is a good one, just crazy skinny, and that battery life is still absolutely stunning as well. UI's not quite as good as the OnePlus Open, but yeah, like it. Lord Hitchy says, I've got the Fold 3 and the Fold 6 still feels like an incremental upgrade. And Algor says, upgrading every 3 to 4 years is probably the best option. I did, and I can say it's like a whole new experience. Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that phones are, you know, boring as fuck these days, but actually, yeah, I guess I kind of am. GH221177 says, it winds me up, these cheaper versions. Why don't they just drop the prices instead of fan editions and stick a bloody charger in the box? Flippin' heck, they always cut corners and know it's not saving on the environment. Now, someone much wiser and a lot more sober than me back in the day said that they don't really mind if companies want to leave the chargers out of the box to try and encourage people to reuse their old ones where they can. But the likes of Samsung and Apple and everyone else who leaves the charger out of the box these days should also include a voucher in the box for a free charger which you can order online, just in case you do need one. Then it's, best of both worlds scenario. Certainly sounds like a good idea to me. It helps to save the whales and the mongoose and budgerigars. Peter N says, well, I'm not going to buy a Fold, but I am tempted by a bag of Skips. Still absolutely top tier crisps. I'll tell you what, Skips, Monster Munch and Discos just haven't been surpassed at all. A typo says, so you slate both flat displays and curved displays in this video. Wow, what do you want then? Displayless phones. I think what you've done there is confused flat displays with flat edges, because that's what I was complaining about last week. The perfect display is flat, or as close to flat as possible, like this Oppo one I'm reviewing right now. Just slight, subtle curvature on all ends, so it doesn't matter how you grip it, you're not balking the responsiveness. If you've got curvy screens, then sometimes that f***s up the sensitivity, and if you've got flat edges, well, they just bite into your palms when you're gripping the phone, iPhone style, which I just do not understand how people actually enjoy that sensation. The Pyman66 says, hi Mr. Spurt, it turns out I was right in the first place. I have no idea what that's referring to. Sorry, if you can comment again below this one and tell me what it was you were right about in the first place, then I can remark on it next week. Mad Mike says, hey cousin Spurty, if Waldot sponsored you and your channel, you may be able to make more revenue than Sunderland AFC. I'll tell you, if I had a quid every time somebody asked me where my sodden wallpapers come from, I'd be living in a palace on an island somewhere, sipping special brew out of a golden chalice and slurping a chicken madras out of the navel of a supermodel. BMBD says, not sure if you've noticed, but the Nothing Phone 2 updates are getting slower. They only update the 2.8 quite often now. I'm surprised to hear that, given they don't exactly have a massive catalogue of phones to update. I did recently re-review the Nothing Phone 2 and it got up to date pretty fast with various patches and everything, but I'll have to keep tabs on that. Cheers for the heads up. Andrew Egan says, I would watch a 10-part episode on traffic cones. It's better than most BBC stuff, and probably less cringeworthy than the televised debates as well. User and then a whole bunch of letters and numbers is asking for predictions for the Euros. Well, Spain are looking pretty tasty. Germany absolutely demolished Scotland, but then that was Scotland. Sorry Scottish people. England are looking a bag of arse as usual, so I'm gonna go Spain. F it, whatever. If you stick a quid in it and win, you can buy your Uncle Spurt a beer sometime. I've also had lots of people asking if I'll be reviewing the Vivo X Fold 3 Pro. Well, I bloody well hope so, because it sounds like a proper OnePlus Open rival. Definitely stay tuned for that. And also lots of people asking me if I'm going to be reviewing the Sony Xperia 1 Mark 6. Well, I've already shot the review. I think I've edited it mostly by now. Might even be live. Who knows? Go check out the channel and see. So massive thank you to everyone who commented last week. Please do smash comments down below. We'll try and get through as many of those as possible in next week's show. And speaking of next week, what the f*** is next week? Well, next week your Uncle Spurt is going to be in New York. I'm going to be in New York. Because it's Motorola's big bendy blower launch, and those fappable foldables certainly looking pretty tasty indeed. So hopefully I'll have some hands-on fondly action for you. Plenty more videos in the pipeline as well, so stay tuned for lots more techie shenanigans. Please do book, subscribe and ding that notifications bell to see all of that. Make sure you lot have yourselves a bloody wonderful weekend. Hopefully see you next week for more Tech Spurt Weekly. Cheers everyone, love you!